Before we get started with today's show, I'm here to tell you about Brez Coffee Company, made by gamers for gamers right here on the Gulf Coast in Pensacola, Florida. Do you like light or medium roast? Then try the Necro Medium, Holy Grail Light, or Stamina Boost. Or if you're like me and prefer darker roast, try the Critical Dark or the Coup Slayer Mocha Roast. But what if you can't pick just one? Then try one of their specialty sample packs, perfect for an all-night gaming, or in the case of my fellow filmmakers, an all-night editing session. Forget about all the crappy coffee you've been buying at the grocery store and head on over to brezcoffeeco.com. Use the promo code DDE at checkout to get 10% off your order. Have you ever thought to yourself after listening to this podcast, why didn't Derek ask this question? Or why didn't he ask that question? I know I certainly have. Well, you get the chance to do that if you sign up for my Patreon at patreon.com/DDiamondPodcast. You get the chance to ask guests of the show a question. If you're a fan of the top 5 list, you get the chance to vote on what the topic will be. You also get early access to episodes, accessibility to my film scripts, and so much more. And you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/DDiamondPodcast. And we want to thank our patrons, Tim Spivey, Donna Diamond, and Shannon Williams. Thanks so much for your continued contributions. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the Derek Diamond Experience podcast, where every week I take a look inside the world of film and television with those who have lived it and experienced it. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and coming up on today's show, you'll be hearing my conversation with casting editor, commercial director, and fellow podcaster, Luke Cheney. And talking with Luke was very interesting in the sense that I had no idea how reality television, or as he educated me on, non-scripted television was made. You know, I know that it has a huge audience. People have loved it since the medium was introduced several years ago, but I had no clue as to the inner workings of it. So it was great getting to chat with him about that, his time working on The Voice, and some of his other work that he's done as well, and also talking about his podcast, the Movie Time Capsule Podcast, which I'll be appearing on very, very soon. But fun chat with Luke, great getting to meet him, and hope to keep in contact with him, you know, even long after this interview is posted, and hopefully you all enjoy it just as much as I did. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Luke Cheney. Welcome back to the Derek Diamond Experience podcast, and this week it's my pleasure to welcome casting editor, producer, Luke Cheney. Luke, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, Derek. I am excited to talk about whatever you want today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we connected through a pretty cool website called podbooker.com. And for those who might be listening who are podcasters and you're looking for, you know, other guests or maybe just other shows to listen to, it's a pretty good resource. And you know, it's shown that it does have success, because that's why you and I are chatting. You know, we connected, read your profile, thought you'd be a great addition to the show. So we've been exchanging emails back and forth, and now here we are. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, of course. It's Podbooker this is my first experience with them, and it's been good so far. And hopefully I can have you on my show.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to. It's always interesting. And I'm sure you probably feel the same way. It's interesting being on other shows as a guest, because you get a whole different side to the podcasting experience, because you're like, oh, what do I do? You know, I'm not, I don't have to edit. I don't have to do all this other stuff that I normally do. So, but being guests on shows is pretty fun. So yeah, I'd love to be on your show as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, it's a lot. It's freeing being on the other side of the microphone today, where I don't have to worry about my notes or my levels, and it's all in your hands today.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So talk to me a little bit about your background and what ultimately brought you to working in the film and entertainment industry, because as I've learned through doing this show over the years, there's not really a set path to get there. There's not like a how-to book that says you have to do these certain things or come from a certain background. to get into the industry. Everybody has their own unique story. So, talk to me about what initially got you interested in working in the industry and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, for me, it goes back to my family. We owned a VHS C camera with the little, kind of chunky
Yep.
tapes. And on family trips, we were always taking that with us. And my dad would be like, "Okay, Luke, I want you to do like a 3 second pan, like to like show off this, whatever, the Eiffel Tower, wherever we may have been at." Like, okay, so I'd like, it was really important for me to like take the camera and go right to left for 3 seconds, hit record, then hit unrecord. And from there on out, I had a camera in my hand all the time, and that led me to film school at the University of Colorado. And when I got out of school, it was pretty much like either New York or LA. Like, which one do you want to go to? And for me, I like to drive my car, so LA was the natural choice. I did not know anyone that lived or worked in the city. I had a friend of a friend that was nice enough to let me sleep on his couch for a week. And so that's where I landed in LA. And he actually ended up giving my first full-time job in LA was from that friend James Ayler's, and that was actually in reality TV, or now we call it non-scripted TV.
Was it nerve wracking at all? You said driving to Los Angeles. So what was going through your mind as you were doing that? Was there a lot of anxiety? What was your mindset like?
Yeah, I don't remember any anxiety. It was more, I think, just excitement, and the possibilities were endless at that point. I was 23 or 24. So, I was pretty bright eyed and bushy tailed, whatever that means. I was just excited to, meet new people, meet new filmmakers, and just see where I could land. I thought for sure that my previous work from Colorado and my resume would get me into a lot of doors. That's totally not true. I think my resume has gotten me nowhere. I think people have almost asked for it, maybe no, at no point people ask you for your resume except for maybe a few full-time jobs. As a freelancer, we just live off of our contacts. Like, someone needs someone to come in for a job, and they have like 2 days to fill it. So they're not going to go hire someone on Craigslist or Upwork. They're going to go into their phone, find out someone who they trust, and then bring them in. And that's how I got my first job, which led to many of jobs.
Well, and that's something that I talk about on the show too, is it's important to have those connections. And sometimes all it takes is starting with one. Getting that
Yeah.
first connection can then open you up to so many others. And I think having, a good resume and a good background is nice to have. But as I've learned as well, in my freelance video work here in Pensacola, Florida, it's also who you know and who is willing to say they know you, to be like, oh, I know, oh, Luke would be fantastic for this job, or Derek might be the perfect fit for that. So that's very important to know.
Yeah, vouching for someone it's like an everyday occurrence pretty much, for either someone's doing it for you or you're doing it for someone else that you know. Your real will get you past the door, but it's not going to get you through the door. I mean, that your first thing is got like, who vouched for you? That's the very first thing that someone's going to be like, okay, do I trust Sam to give me this recommendation for this job? Yes or no? And then from there, it's up to you to succeed.
For sure. Talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned your first job was working in reality or non-scripted television. What was your
Yeah.
job specifically, and how was your experience with it?
My first job was on a show called The Sing Off, which was an a cappella singing competition show for NBC. And this was 2009. So back in the mini DV tape age. So they had already shot a bunch of auditions across the country, and they needed someone to come back, listen to the auditions that were moving forward in the process, and listen for the artists and the titles. So we didn't have like Shazam back then. I had to go through manually and record all of these all of these tracks for whatever reason. I don't know why. It was, I think I was working for like probably, oh man, like 250 a day. For me, that was super exciting. I was like, oh wow, this is a lot of money. All right, great. Where do I sign? The bad thing about it was at the end of their pitch. So they were coming up to the end of the casting and they were about to pitch to the executives. So the office is just like buzzing full of people and they barely had room for me to sit at the end of a 6-foot table. There was like 5 people in a room the size of a bedroom and they were all on these 6-foot tables working on their computers. And I'm sitting at the edge of one with just barely enough space for my laptop. And they didn't even have a chair for me. I had to sit on a large flat cooler for the day with a towel under my rear. And that was my first day in the reality world. Yeah.
It sounds like a memorable one for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. But I mean, that's sometimes that's what, that's how it works sometimes. But I think the fact that you were able to still get your foot in the door in any capacity is very important. And I did want to also ask you, because you've worked several different jobs. You've worked as an editor, producer, but the most intriguing title that you've held is casting editor. What exactly does a casting editor do? Because I've heard of, casting directors. And when I was looking at your IMDb, I thought that's a title that I've never heard before. So can you talk to me a little bit about what your role as a casting editor is and what they do?
Sure. Yeah. So in a casting office, there's kind of 3 roles. There is the casting director, who's kind of like, you consider them the director of a film or an executive producer of a project. And then below that, you have the casting producers / talent scouts. They're the people that find talent to bring in to the shows that I worked on. And then there's casting editors who are also sometimes casting producers as well. But as a casting editor, we get usually 2 things. I should mention that I only pretty much worked on talent shows. So singing shows, dancing shows, not a lot of personality kind of just shows like, what is it? The Real Housewives of whatever city, right. Not like that kind of stuff. So the casting team would go to a city like Atlanta and they would film someone singing a couple songs. If they liked them, they would ask them to sit down for a few minutes and talk about their life, talk about their struggles, talk about their aspirations. And then as a casting editor, I'm going to get both of those pieces of footage, either the talent and the interview, and I'm going to kind of mash them together into a highlight reel. So it might start out with a funny personality bite, and then we go into their song, come back for a personality interview bite, and then finish off with a new song. So something around like 3 minutes that kind of sums up their talent and their personality all in one little chunk. And after I would go through and edit 10 or 15 contestants, the casting director would come down and sit with me and watch the edit that I would do and give me notes like, okay, this song is pretty good, but it's not as good as the second one. So let's flip songs so that the better song is up front. And the reason that they do that, they would heavy load these edits with the funniest personality at the beginning or the best song at the very beginning, is because when we go and pitch these contestants at the final pitch meeting with people like Mark Burnett, whoever, people's attention spans are very short. So like they'll see like 20 seconds and then they'll move on, like either yes or no, this person's going to be on the show or they won't be on the show. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's really fascinating to think that, because watching shows like, say, America's Got Talent or The Voice, competitive shows like that, like I've always wondered, as someone who's dabbled more into the behind the scenes side of things, I've always wondered, like who is there, just one person who puts the show together from start to finish? I didn't think of it as being, okay, well, one person puts this portion of the show together as far as the whole broad spectrum, and then using it to, for pitches and everything. Like I didn't even think of that. So that's really fascinating.
Yeah, it can be a very long process for the contestants to actually get on the show. For shows like American Idol or The Voice, like you see them in front of the famous celebrity singers, but there's probably 3 to 4 auditions that take place before that. For example, when we have our large auditions for a singing show, I'll be one of 10 producers, casting producers, who sit in a room and all day I'm listening to singers come in and they'll sing a cappella, a song of their choice for 20 to 40 seconds. And that's all they get. That's the first hurdle, is that. And me and 10 other people, we're saying yes or no right there on the spot. And if they get a yes, then they'll get to sing with music the next time around, and they get to bring an instrument if they want to. And if they get past that, they'll go and sing in front of the executives. If they get past that, then you go in front of Blake Shelton and the Adam Levines and all those people. So it is very hard to make it to the light of day in the reality world.
And it's interesting because when you watch shows like that and you hear the contestants' stories and everything before you see them actually, in The Voice's case, audition in front of the celebrity judges, you never really think that there's so many other steps before that. It's almost like the audition before the audition.
Right. There's so much that goes into it. It's kind of baffling. I think for casting, it can usually take about 4 to 6 months of everyone, looking for contestants, searching for contestants on YouTube, on Twitter, TikTok, wherever, inviting some of the best of the best of people that have not been discovered by labels or by records, whoever. And we scout them, invite them, and then also just getting the large auditions together too, so that everyone can come together in one city at one time. That's kind of the old school way of doing it now that of course COVID's happened. I've been hearing that everyone's been doing everything through Zoom now, singing, dancing, everything through the computer.
That is the virtual world that we've kind of moved to now. And in a way, it makes things easier because you don't have to travel to a specific location, or like even if you're an actor for a narrative film and you don't have to drive across town to speak in front of a person for 5 to 10 seconds, you can just hit record and submit. So I think, that's something that I think will never go away now that it's become a thing. The convenience of it is I think it's just too great for it to completely go away.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to stick around for a very long time.
It's different in the sense that, auditioning in front of a person or in front of an audience, you get a whole different vibe than just you talking in front of a camera, because you're not really interacting with anyone. You're almost having to fake the interaction, if you will, which can make it more challenging, I think.
Yeah, I think maybe for some people it would help because they don't really have the nerves of performing to 3 people in a room. It's just a kind of blank computer screen connection of someone staring off into the distance at you. I don't know. It's got to be a kind of a crapshoot between if it helps people or hinders people's auditions.
For sure. Yeah, there's pros and cons to both. I think, it might, for those who might thrive on performing in front of people, it might be, crippling for them to just speak in front of a camera, whereas someone who has anxiety about performing in front of people might thrive more in a more, intimate setting, just speaking in front of a camera, and maybe one person on the other side of it. So like most everything, there's pros and cons to both.
2 sides to the coin.
Yep, absolutely. So you've worked as a casting editor for shows like MasterChef Junior, The Sing Off, Undercover Boss, and also The Voice, which is a show. And I got to mention that because my fiance is a huge fan of The Voice. Every time it's on TV, we're watching it. And so how did you get involved with that show, and how's your experience been working on it?
Sure. Yeah. So that show was casted by the same person, Michelle McNulty, who I worked for in the very first job that I ever got in LA. So with Michelle McNulty, I worked on America's Best Dance Crew and The Sing Off, a few other shows, but those are the big main 3. And when we heard about The Voice, we were all pretty excited. One, because it had Mark Brunette, who's like the godfather of reality TV. And two, it was called the Untitled Talent Project when it came to us. They didn't have a name for it yet, but it came from Holland, from a show called The Voice of Holland. And they showed us one of the very first auditions. There was a 4-chair turnaround, and it was from this guy who just looked like a big, muscly biker riding dude. He's all tatted up and like someone that you probably wouldn't want to stand next to at a subway, but he came out and sang Kings of Leon as if he was like an operatic trained singer, like just perfectly knocked it out of the park and got 4 chairs. And I got goosebumps watching that. And I think from that point on, we were all like invested in the show. Like we wanted to get the best people. And from what I've heard from other people that worked with Mark Burnett on his shows, it just kind of trickles down from the top. Like he cares about the shows, he cares about the people that he works with on his shows, and it creates a really great environment for everyone, whether you're in production or in casting. It's been a great experience. I've made some lifelong friends through the casting company that I've worked with, Michelle McNulty's company, for many years, and some of the best years of my life, actually.
And that's what's great about working in film and TV is that you never know who you're going to meet from. They could be from a completely different city or another part of the world, or have a completely different background, different beliefs. When you come together to make a project happen, because there's so many levels of film and TV, and as you know, you've been educating me the different levels that go into reality, or in The Voice's case, like a talent-based competition show. There's so many layers to it, and you never know who you're going to connect with, and those relationships that you form, whether it's purely professional or, as you mentioned, friends. You just never know, and that is one of the most rewarding parts about the industry, I think.
Yeah, and I can kind of sum up that with a real life experience. We casted a show I've mentioned already, The Sing Off, and there was a group of college guys from the University of Oregon called On the Rocks, and they came on. They were hilarious, and one of them moved from Oregon to LA after he graduated from college, and he hit up Michelle, the casting director, and was like, "Hey, Michelle, I'm looking for a job. Do you have anything for us?" And so he got a job working for us as a casting producer. And there was another casting producer girl at the office, and those two became really good friends. And then eventually they got married, and now they have kids. So it's kind of a awesome story between casting and the real world.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah. You just never know. You never know who, like one specific event or one job that might happen that, sets you on a course for life like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. And also looking at your IMDb, I've seen that you've also dabbled into being a director and doing other aspects of the industry as well. Is that something that, when you first started working in non-scripted television, did you eventually know you wanted to branch out and try other things?
Well, directing was always on my mind from the moment I, left Colorado. That was the main goal, and still is the main goal. I'm focusing now on being a commercial director. And yeah, when I was in reality, spending all of my hours looking for contestants and talent, I was lucky enough to have friends that worked with me in the casting that also wanted to make films. And I was able to, make those short films on the weekends, and create like a large network from casting. And, other people are always talented that work in the reality world, and we all kind of want to be filmmakers. That's what brings us out to LA, and we all find different paths along the way. Some people stay in reality, and some people move on to other tech related things. But I'm still working on being a professional commercial director, and I've been here for 12 years and been loving it ever since.
Yeah, I've been out to Los Angeles twice, and it's growing up, watching shows like Full House and other shows that were filmed out on the West Coast, and just seeing footage of the West Coast, like it was so different from where I lived. And I understand, where you're coming from, and being that, being out there is really cool, because you get to see things like the Walk of Fame. You get to see like where almost everything is made. I mean, it's changed a little bit now because of the invention of new technology. You can make movies in Georgia, you can make movies in Tennessee, wherever the case may be, but there is something special still about Los Angeles.
Yeah, Los Angeles is, where everyone comes to get their start, it seems like. And of course, productions are moving to London and Canada and everywhere. So it feels like mostly only TV is being shot here now. Um, but yeah, I wish more films. I wish it was easier to shoot here. That's the problem, is the permitting and the fees are just astronomical, which makes it harder for everyone to shoot here. So even for me, like, it's intimidating when I have small projects, like to go pull those permits for every part of the process, whether you're inside a house, outside of a house. That's two different permits. And yeah, it's kind of a bummer how difficult it can be to make films in the heartland of filmmaking.
And you would think, really, if there you could name one place that would be the easiest to shoot, would be LA, because everything's right there. It's strange
Hmm.
how that works.
Yeah, I remember once I had a photo shoot and I had this big old soft source, and I was like, I had it for the whole day. So I asked some of my model friends, like, hey, do you guys want to go out and shoot over on the Sixth Street Bridge? I'll bring out the big light source. They're like, yeah, yeah, let's go do it. So I brought out this big thing on a big tripod stand, and we're shooting pretty much almost in the middle of the street at like midnight. And this cop pulls up. He's like, are you guys shooting video? I go, no, just photo. He's like, all right, see you later. Just drove off because it's just like a completely different world. Like, this city wants to get so much money out of filmmakers and film permits. It's kind of ridiculous.
That's crazy. That's funny though. I was like, all right, see you
Yeah.
later.
Couldn't care less.
Yeah. But yeah, as we start to wrap up here, I did want to ask you, you mentioning, putting all the packages together for these singers who would audition for these, shows. And there have been a lot of inspirational stories from some of these contestants. Were you exposed to that in your job? And if so, were there any specific stories that had an emotional impact on you?
Oh, that is a good question that I should have thought of beforehand. Um, Emotional stories. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone has hardships. Some that people don't put out there into the world until they're asked kind of flat out. I can honestly not think of any off the top of my head. But what has been cool, from at least from The Voice, I got to know a couple of the singers really well, became legitimate friends with them, and they became close enough with me and trusted me enough to make music videos with them. And that's been an awesome kind of perk about working with so many talented people, is that they need talented people like me to make content for their careers. And it's been an honor to be trusted with some of their projects like that.
I imagine that has to be a rewarding experience, in a way that, they trust you with that, because in a way they're putting their hopes and dreams in your hands. That's got to be a gratifying feeling.
Yeah, I remember I did a music video with Anthony Evans, who is he's a pretty famous gospel singer, for people that know gospel music and Christian music. And after he got done with The Voice, he asked Michelle McNulty, the casting director of The Voice, like, hey, I need someone to direct my music video. And I had only done like one low budget as crap music video, and she recommended me because she saw something in me, which I appreciated. And we ended up going to do like a $20,000 or $30,000 music video, which was, 10 times larger than any budget I've ever done. We went and shot it out in the desert, and with the techno crane and everything. And we made it look amazing and beautiful. And I had a great team supporting me, but I honestly was terrified to shoot that music video for such a large, important person. But yeah, someone gave me the faith, and I luckily was able to come through.
No, that's fantastic. That's great. Uh, I always like to end the conversations with this. What is one piece of advice that you could give someone who wants to work in the entertainment industry?
Sure. Um, like we talked about at the very beginning, your resume doesn't really mean that much. It's all about who you know. And I didn't think that was really going to be true when I moved out to LA. I was like, nah, that's not important. But I would say, value all of your friendships, all of your connections. If someone gives you a business card, follow up. If someone says, hey, we should get a drink sometime, follow up and get those drinks. Like, make your connections, be invested in other people's projects, and they'll return the favor when it comes time that, like, hey, I need a photographer for this really quick, or hey, I need a camera operator to come in for this. Like, you'll never know when the opportunity is going to come and knock on your door. So just make sure you leave as many doors open as possible.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Do you have a website or social media that you'd like to plug so the listeners can follow you? And tell people about your podcast.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So my podcast is called Movie Time Capsule. It's about I tell people the world is ending and you have 60 minutes to put your favorite movies in a time capsule. And it's kind of like the deserted island question. Like, if you could bring one movie with you, except in this case, it's, like 10 movies. Like, what's the movie that makes you cry? What's the movie that you would show someone if you wanted to cheer them up? Questions like that are a little more emotional and less surface level questions about movies. So I can get to know people through their movie choices. And you can find that on all of the podcast players. My website is lukecheney.com. And my Instagram, if you want to see what I'm doing, is Los_Angeles_Luke.
Fantastic. Well, Luke, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. This was great.
Derek, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And I'm going to invite you to come on to the Movie Time Capsule and give me your choices.
Absolutely. Just let me know and we'll make it happen. Thanks again to Luke Cheney for that awesome conversation. Be sure to check out his podcast, the Movie Time Capsule Podcast, and follow him on Instagram at Los_Luke to find out what he'll be up to next. And if you want to follow this show on social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at D Diamond Podcast. If you want to subscribe to the show, I'm on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, anywhere you get your podcasts. Just search for the Derek Diamond Experience. And if you could, please leave a review. The more reviews I get, the more visible I become to the podcasting public. If you want to watch the video versions of the show, they're on YouTube. Just search for the Derek Diamond Experience. If you want to follow me on Patreon, I'm at patreon.com/DDiamondPodcast. If you want early and ad-free access to episodes, the chance to vote on show topics such as the Clerks Watch Along that I did earlier this month, which it was last month when I did the Clerks Watch Along. That'll be posted for the public. Next week, I'll be doing a Ghostbusters Watch Along with Jason Robbins and Wally Phelps in a couple of weeks, just in time for the Halloween season. If you want to vote on the top 5 list, this month we'll be doing top 5 horror movie characters. That's going to be a lot of fun to do. Just head on over to patreon.com/DDiamondPodcast. And of course, thank you to the Unicorn Wranglers for providing the theme music for the podcast. You can check out all their music on Apple Music, Google Play, and Spotify. That's going to do it for this week's show, so enjoy the rest of your week. Have a safe and fun weekend. Thank you for tuning in to another awesome episode of the Derek Diamond Experience. I'm your host, Derek Diamond, and we'll see you guys back here next Thursday.